right. Believe I'm streaming now. Hello! Oh, you caught me live streaming. Speaking of live streaming, let's do some. Draw, draw, draw. Yeah. So, thank you everyone for joining me again. Give me a moment to take a swig of Mountain Dew. That's better. Yeah, so, just got home from work. Ready to do this live stream. I know I need to increase the overall audio, but for now this is the best I can do. Hopefully that improves over time. Bear with me. For now you're going to just have to crank the audio way up if this isn't good enough. Today's Inktober prompt was Tranquil. I want to check one thing. I'm not seeing anybody in the chat window, and I want to be sure that it's the correct chat window. I don't think it is, actually. Uno momento. Por favor. All right. Oh, okay. I do have a chat window. So let me put that up so that everybody can see it. Give me 2 seconds. I'm building something in OBS. No, that's not it. Where do I put in that address? Trying to figure out where I put in the chat window. That's not it. Hi. I'll try to center myself a little bit more while I'm doing this. Close that. Oh, getting there. Bear with me. Appreciate everybody joining me. I'll take your questions in a moment. Right now I can't quite see them because I'm just setting up the chat window so that it's viewable both for the video and for myself. So I thought I had that set up, and apparently I didn't. But it's an easy enough fix. Takes me a minute. Hope everybody out there is doing well. I've definitely got more energy than last night. It was pretty late when we started streaming last night. That's just the way it's going to be sometimes this month. But definitely got out earlier today, which is nice. I'm just navigating through some YouTube menus. Alright, yeah, I can now see at least that there are a bunch of folks in there, so I can sort of see the chat every once in a while, Ghost Dog, but I'm not quite set up yet. So, let me see if I've done this correctly. There we go. Alright. Now I can see what everybody is saying. I'm not going to give you a shout out, guy with the curse word in his name. This counts. Am I starting early? Asks Sigamigs. Earlier than last night. Okay, so I can see you all now. Let me just try to make an adjustment to the size of the window so that I can be sure. Yeah, if I just do that, there. Now I can see you, and you can see me. And I picked up some of my favorite art tools recently. I've got a favorite mechanical pencil. It's by Pentel. It's like a $19 mechanical pencil, but I like how it's weighted and I like the grip on it. So make of that what you will. And I picked up a few fresh ink brushes for myself. Am I going to see the Venom movie? Yeah, probably. Hello, Damocles. And I know that it looks like I'm not looking at you all the time. I'm actually looking at a screen back there that I can see the chat window. So maybe it's a little awkward that I'm sort of looking in a different direction, but that's what's going on. I thought this was going to be a Chris Twerks stream. Well, give it time. Give it time. Maybe. Maybe later. So I'm drawing a total goofball in this case. I am drawing a character who was part of G.I. Joe, and he had the not very exciting codename Windmill. And he was a helicopter pilot for G.I. Joe. And my buddy Hooded Cobra Commander 788 will be reviewing this toy in the near future, and I said I would like to draw him because he was such a weirdo. So I'm sort of combining two things, Inktober and trying to draw something for a friend. Hope that makes sense. Did I see the trailer for the animated Spider-Man movie? Yes, I think it looks fantastic. I'm a big fan of Miles Morales. I'm a big fan of the comic book storyline Spider-Verse, and it looks like it'll be taking a lot of inspiration from both of those things. So yeah, totally gonna see that. I usually like anything by Lord and Miller. Those guys are great, so pretty excited for that. Looks good. Cool question. I love the coworkers that I have right now. That said, one of them, who I will not name because I do like him and I don't want to like call somebody out, but he's a little gullible. So I texted him because I wanted to sort of pass on a sale that I would like potentially split with him. And so I text the guy and I say, hey, we'll just call him Joey Jojo Jobadoo. No, I won't say that repeatedly. I go, hey, where are you? And he goes, I'm out on a test drive with a customer. And I go, okay, reach over and put your foot on the pedal and give it gas, because Dwayne Johnson is here. And he goes, really? And I go, no, but I do want to talk to you about potentially splitting a sale. He's like, okay, see you in a while. And I go, and also The Rock is here. And he goes, seriously? I go, no! Dude, I just told you no, he wasn't. Like, don't fall for it twice in a row. Oh, I don't know. I thought I was being, like, so ridiculous, because why would Dwayne Johnson be buying a used car in the Seattle area of all places? Why would he be buying a used car? I didn't think that that was very realistic. Apparently, to some people, that was more realistic than I thought. So I'm drawing a sort of weird G.I. Joe vehicle here. It was, I think it was called the Sky Storm. It was like a helicopter that transformed into a jet. What's tonight's subject? Shirley Downing's asking. The prompt word was tranquil, and I'm making a very, very liberal use of my interpretation of that to simply just mean something that's kind of still. Basically, I just wanted to draw this G.I. Joe character for my friend, and so that's what I'm doing today. But, I mean, Inktober is more about drawing something every day and practicing your craft than it is about, like, following the prompts every day. So, I took a mulligan on that one today. Hope that makes sense. Who's my favorite Spider-Man artist? That's a great question. Who is my favorite Spider-Man artist? Well, I really, really do enjoy and respect what Ditko did because he made the character what it is instead of just a traditional beefcake superhero. Spider-Man's definitely more of like, you know, a slimmer athletic physique, a little gawky, a little awkward, and that's all thanks to Steve Ditko. So I do really love his issues. I mean, he really made the character what it was. But I also do like a lot of Romita's stuff that followed, Romita Sr. I like Romita Jr. I started reading Spider-Man when Todd McFarlane came on board. So I like that a lot then. I don't like it as much now, but I do still like the Eric Larson run that followed. I thought Eric Larson was, I don't know, I just really like his Spider-Man and his take on a lot of Spider-Man villains. Yeah, I like Eric Larson's work a lot. I don't know if he's quite my favorite, but he's definitely somebody that I like a lot. I think Stuart Immonen and Sarah Pichelli have both done just gorgeous, gorgeous work on Spider-Man. So they're way up there. Man, when you're talking about a character who's had the all-time best artists, Spider-Man is definitely one of them. You know, Spider-Man, Batman, X-Men, those are all titles that always get the absolute best in the business. So it gets really tough to say, like, definitively who a personal favorite is because there's so many choices. I don't know if there's any character that's had as many good choices. I am here, says Karen G. I love it. Wait, you are here or All Might is here? I am here. If you read My Hero Academia, you'd get it. Glad to hear Chibi's doing better. Yeah, my cat is doing a lot better. She may not even be diabetic anymore. She may have actually like recovered from her diabetes, which would be fantastic. We shall see. We shall see. She's a big part of why I opted to do Inktober this year. But I told that story last night, and I don't want to repeat myself. What kind of stories haven't I told lately? Telling a little bit of a work story. I don't know. I gotta think about it. Got one good story to tell, but I'll save that actually because it's a pretty big one. And it's funny. But I'll save that one. Hello, Rainy Shack. What's he drawing? Just a G.I. Joe character who called himself Windmill. Not tremendously cool. Not too cool. He had a bizarre helmet. Yeah, he was just a total weirdo. I love drawing weirdos. Some of the other things I've been thinking of that you know I could be drawing at some point. It really all depends on what inspires me, etc. But I think I might draw a Cenobite and definitely some horror stuff. I'm a big horror fan, and it's October, so I'll definitely be drawing some classic horror villains. I think Judge Dredd is a character that I feel like drawing some point soon. Who else? I don't know. Probably Spider-Man will find his way in there since he's one of my favorites. We'll see. I gotta look at the prompts and just sort of decide each day exactly what I'm doing. Try not to think too far ahead or plan too far ahead for this. We'll just see where it goes. Alright, No Justice, No Peace says, I'll never forget the interview McFarlane gave on Prisoners of Gravity where he visibly sneered and said people don't read comics for the stupid stories, that they read them to see his art. Did he really say that? I totally believe it, but I don't know that to be a fact. I didn't see that. Yeah, I mean, your mileage may vary. Everybody gets a different thing out of comics. I won't lie. I mean, the art is a big part of what attracted me to comics when I was younger. And so McFarlane's right in the sense that like his art did catch my eye when I was a teenager. But I really stuck with comics and developed my passion for them because of the story. At the same time, I can't say that it's purely the writer. Otherwise, I'd be like, you know, just talking up books. And I love what you can do with comics. I love that they're a collaboration most of the time. I love that they're... I love that they use several different types of art techniques to get made, you know, like coloring and lettering, and I don't know, all of that's very, very important to me to make them what they are. What was the first comic character you drew? I don't know if I'd remember. I'm trying to think if like anything stands out in my memory. It's an interesting question. What would I have drawn first? I'm trying to think if any comic characters were basically on cartoon shows that I would have been watching when I was a kid, because that probably would influence what I attempted to draw. Nothing's leaping to mind right now, so Spider-Man or Batman are very likely candidates. I definitely remember drawing Transformers when I was in like maybe 3rd grade or something. That was a big deal for me at the time. In fact, when I was 10 years old, I made something like maybe a 60-page Transformers comic. Yeah, 60 pages. And it's not good at all. I mean, it's in fact very derivative of the stories that they were telling on the cartoon, just sort of interpreted my way. So they're very like repetitive. They're very derivative. That said, I think it's absolutely hilarious to go back and look at those. And if anyone's ever interested, I would potentially, just like as extra content someday, share that comic, or at least part of that comic on an episode. Just extra content type thing. I don't know, but it is pretty nutty. It's pretty weird. I'm just like, I look back at it and I'm like, wow, I was kind of ambitious and very driven at that age, like that I would do so many pages. I was just like, I think trying to illustrate every Transformers character in the story. I think that was my goal. I don't know if I quite accomplished it, but there's a lot of characters in it. And it's terrible, by the way. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's really bad. You know what? Let me make an adjustment here. I'm going to zoom in slightly and see if I can fix the sort of resolution by zooming in a little. I don't know if that's too much better. Yeah, that's about the best I can do for now. Have I ever drawn any Mega Man characters? No. I didn't have an NES when I was young, so some of those characters weren't like characters I was intimately familiar with. So I didn't even think to attempt something like that. Cool idea, but can't say that I ever did. And if you challenged me to draw him now, I still wouldn't really know exactly what Mega Man looks like off the top of my head. I'd have to look at some reference for something like that. So I don't know that this will be the most exciting drawing I've ever done. I'm kind of just going for something a little bit functional. Just drawing a weirdo, a pretty obscure character, but it's fun for me, so it keeps it going, keeps all of this going. I think I'll probably do plenty of better known characters as we continue down Inktober. Inktober, yeah. Let's see, are there any questions? All sorts of things. The drawing's looking pretty cool. Well, you're kind. If you could write a Spider-Man comic book, what would it be about and why? Haven't really thought about it. When I tend to write stuff, it definitely tends to be original characters and ideas more than anything else. It's an interesting question. What would I do? I guess what I'd want to do is just reiterate like who Spider-Man is at his core and try to do that in a fairly original way. So I wouldn't really want to tell yet another Doctor Doom or Green Goblin story unless there was a very specific need for a character like that. I'm trying to see like what aspect of Peter hasn't been explored enough. We know about his sense of responsibility. We know how he handles adversity. Do we know how he handles success? That's an interesting one, right? Do we know how he handles it when things are going well for him? I mean, because obviously not everything would be peachy keen, but I wonder, there's been a little bit of that Dan Slott attempted because, you know, he did, he had, after the Superior Spider-Man arc, Dr. Octopus had built Parker Industries into more of a legit business, and there was a cool arc where now Peter Parker takes back his life, and he has a very successful business. So I guess to a degree he handled it, but I think he focused a little bit more on the idea of Spider-Man sort of working with S.H.I.E.L.D., working with, like, you know, much bigger resources, and I would love to focus a little bit more on the sort of soap opera drama of Peter Parker's life. I think that always works pretty well when you've got a good supporting cast. And he has a really good one. Like, I think that could be fun. I always loved his co-workers at the Daily Bugle, but we could we could easily give him a bunch of new coworkers that are just as interesting and relevant for today. So maybe that's something I do. All right, I guess I took forever to answer your question. That's what I'd try to do. I'd see how Spider-Man or Peter Parker dealt with success. I guess I missed a bunch of stuff. Do you think that superheroes should be conveyed with one motivation that ties all their actions together, or have them written as realistic people with a complex mindset? Well, I think that, like, of course I like complexity. At the same time, I do think that the average person has a, is defined by an overall ambition, even if they're not aware of it. I really do think that, like, you know, the question really becomes, do people change? You know, do circumstances change people, or are we sort of always who we are? So that's an interesting angle to take, I think. Hopefully that makes sense. This is honestly very nice and relaxing to come home from work and be able to just draw and chat about stuff that isn't that important. I love it. Thank you all for being part of this. I appreciate it. It's a little bit of work to try to improve, but it's certainly not hard work. Okay, people are talking a lot about Spider-Man, but that's understandable. There was a new trailer today. The Venom movie's coming out. The comics are doing well, so I get it. Let's just see here. Yeah. You know what? This isn't the right pen for that. How did I meet Phoenix Jones? Let me think for a second. How did I meet Phoenix Jones? I know I reached out for an interview. I'm trying to remember why. I don't really remember. I think I was writing an article for my friend's website, The Robot's Pajamas, and I reached out on maybe social media, and a guy that was working sort of like his manager reached out to me and told me that I could meet him at a certain time and place, like late at night in Seattle, and I did, and I tagged along with him for a patrol, and we just kind of got along, so I kept in touch, and then I ultimately ended up moving out here to Seattle, and he was like one of the only people that I knew, so yeah. Boy, that's yeah. Might have been something back in like 2012 or somewhere around there that I first met him. So it's been a while. Been a while. Yeah, it had to be something like that. It had to be like 2012 that I originally reached out. Wow. Time flies. So, I've drawn G.I. Joe stuff plenty of times before, a lot of times for my friend's YouTube channel, Hooded Cobra Commander 788. it's just because I don't know, I was really into Transformers and G.I. Joe when I was young, and I still have a lot of like passion for them. You know, I haven't gotten ever really burned out on the idea of those things. And G.I. Joe has actually, if anything, kind of grown more over the years. My interest in it. It's hard to explain, but it's just especially that sort of like 80s version, really the comic books by Larry Hama. I just really enjoy them for the most part, and I really love his continuation that's been going on the last several years at IDW. So that's what I'm drawing, and it's just something I've always enjoyed. Milo, leave me alone. Sorry, my cat's sort of scratching at the door because he thinks he wants to come in and just hang out, which normally I, of course, love my cats to hang out, but I'm working. Milo, leave me alone. What's your opinion on the JMS run on Spider-Man? That's an interesting question. I didn't love it though. It was a little too metaphysical for me, which I respect that he was doing something different, like sort of using a lot more sort of magic and that, but it just didn't really just didn't resonate with me personally much. And I'm pretty sure, didn't he do that story arc where turns out Gwen Stacy had children with Norman Osborn? I'm pretty sure he wrote that, and that did not work for me. What do you think? What superhero do you think is the hardest for you to draw? For me, it would just be somebody like really complex. Iron Man. Iron Man, like in his current armor. That's a pretty tricky character to get looking right. Yeah, that would probably be the hardest for me. I love the look that Ari Granov came up with for Iron Man. It's become the definitive look for him for a long time now. But yeah, for me that's tricky to illustrate. Well, I hope you guys can't hear my cat because he's really hollering. But I think he's far enough away that maybe you don't hear him? I don't know. He's fine. He really likes two things, like attention from me and food. And it's basically his dinner time. BD Riley says, I think I just barely heard it. Damocles says, didn't. Hello, Clay3613. Oh, don't worry, Kevin. He's fine. He can afford to wait a little while for his food. I take really good care of him. He loves to eat. And I don't overfeed him, so that means he's very hungry when it's dinner time. Hey, Kevin, you like G.I. Joe, right? I believe you were part of. I've lost track, but like Cobra Convergence 2, is that right? I think I'm right. Been over a year, but yeah, Kevin, I believe, made a review of something for an annual event that the G.I. Joe community does called Cobra Convergence. It's a lot of fun. Drop in some shadows here, and oh, what to talk about, That's the only thing that's a challenge for me is like when I have time to prepare, and I am a guy who really likes to prepare. I like to have stories and stuff, and I basically am starting these live streams up the second I get home from work, so haven't really, probably never will, have a lot of time to think too far ahead and think up what kind of stories I want to tell. So I'm just sort of like relying on see you, Shirley, just trying to rely on like questions and stuff to provide inspiration for telling stories. But yeah, so let's see here, what kind of stuff. Anybody else out there doing Inktober? Or thinking about it anyway? It's fun. It's a challenge, but it's fun. Alright, I know I've been quiet for a moment here, so give me a moment to just finish a fine detail, and then I will take a look at the chat room. Hopefully that inspires me to say something halfway interesting. We'll see. No promises. All right, questions. BD Riley says, I'm inking a Laura Kinney as Wolverine right now. Having steady hands is hard. Well, good luck. Would you consider sketching a character you made up, asks Sigamigs. Yeah, I might do that one night. That could be fun. What do I think is the most important role for a comic book? Writer, penciler? Well, that's hard to say because you have to have a story and you have to have art. Those are like the two things you have to make it a comic book. So, I mean, you have to have an artist, but that artist has to be able to tell a story. So if they can both write a story and draw, then there you go. But it needs both to be what it is. Hope that makes sense. Does Milo need first dinner? Yes, Chrissy. If you had it in you to give him a little food, I would be grateful. He would be grateful. The listeners would be grateful. They'd know that my cat ate something. Ellis Grieger, any thoughts on the Jason Momoa Crow remake? Is that actually happening? I feel like a Crow remake has been in the works for so long. It's insane. Yeah, remake it. Go for it. It's nothing especially sacred. If somebody has a good take on the material, go for it. I do really like the Brandon Lee movie adaptation. I probably actually like the movie adaptation that he did more than the original comic book, which honestly, like, didn't do a lot for me. It's fine. It's not bad, but it really is a pretty standard, like, revenge type story, and it's just the idea of a character coming back to life for love that makes it somewhat unique. That said, I bet we could look through some classic literature and find some sort of similar example. I don't know. I'm not trying to take anything away from J.O. Barr because it's you know, it's executed pretty well. I just yeah, it's not like a personal favorite comic. It's okay. But I don't think that they've ever had, excuse me, like a second movie or TV version that's been any good. Like, none of the rest of them interest me. Only that first movie. So I don't know. Like, is it something even worth revisiting? I don't know. I guess it has some name recognition, so go for it. But I don't know what you add to it to make it special. I really don't. It's a pretty by the numbers type of story, and like the comic didn't necessarily have that much mythology or anything to explore. You know, there's not a lot to the Crow universe. The Croniverse is what I call it, which pisses off David Cronenberg because he has the Cronenverse, but actually he doesn't. So don't worry, I'm just making stuff up. Okay, a bunch of questions. Let me see. Brian A has to feed his cats. Do it. Do it. I'm writing an original comic with original characters. When I'm done with the script, can I send it to you so you can make sure it's not bad? You can. I can't promise that I'll have the time to be an editor on anything. I really can't promise that. And that's not like singling anybody out. I'm just trying to be realistic. I don't know. I get asked stuff like that a lot. And honestly, it's like, what does my opinion matter? I proofread some comics, I've drawn some comics, but I'm not really like an industry professional, so I feel like any sort of advice I give should be taken with a grain of salt. You're welcome to email anything to comictropes@gmail.com, and I'll do my best to look at whatever I get. I just don't want to promise anything. Hope you understand. Jorge Delgado says, did you know that the French comic encyclopedia named, oh, do I know of it, called Proteo Fuerza 10? I don't know about that. That sounds very interesting. I'll have to look that up. Didn't Jonah Hex do the same thing decades earlier? Oh yeah, I guess Jonah Hex did a little bit. Spawn is very similar to Crow, except he's also got various superpowers. Am I working from a reference at all here? Not this goofball character, but this vehicle I absolutely am, because it's not really based on anything real world, and it has some pretty abnormal shapes. So I asked my friend Brian that I'm drawing this for to take a picture at a particular angle that I wanted, and I'm basing it off of that. So yes, I am definitely using reference. And some people are like, hey, I thought you hated reference, you know, in the Greg Land episode. Isn't that what your argument was? And no. Use reference. Reference is fine. Drawing from real life is fine. My argument was that he uses reference so much that his artwork has evolved in a different direction than where he started. He used to have more energy and good panel-to-panel instincts for storytelling, and I think he uses so much reference that those instincts aren't as sharp as they used to be. That was my argument. Not that using reference in and of itself is bad. I think he like just has less confidence in his own drawing abilities these days, and so he uses reference that just for everything, and that like makes things even stiffer. can equal a good illustration but a bad comic. Anyway, I don't have a problem with people using reference. Have I ever done drawings for advertising? Asks Sigmigs. Have I? I wonder. Let me think. I mean, I've designed ads plenty, you know, like in InDesign and Photoshop and stuff like that. So I've designed lots of ads for various companies that I've worked for. Have I done an illustration, though? No. The closest thing would be I designed a baby eagle, a cartoon baby eagle mascot for one company that I worked for, and that appeared in some ads. But like it wasn't the focus of the ad. It was just like sometimes like on an ad as sort of like just like a mascot. It was honestly like the president's idea, and it was very derivative of the Aflac duck, but I did design that, and we made like 10,000 plush toy eagles out of it because he loved it so much. So that was kind of fun to see my drawing become like a toy essentially. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, absolutely. You want me to hand it to you? Here, my fiance has stepped in to draw over there. Here you go. Yeah, no problem. Do you want me to unplug it so that you can plug it in somewhere else?
Sure.
Okay. Give me 2 seconds, folks.
Sorry to interrupt.
You're not really interrupting. I mean, it's fun to draw with people.
Whee!
Have I gotten any crappy comics for my contest? Not yet, but I'm sure that it's, you know, it hasn't even been a full week, so I need time for it to go through the mail, right? I hope I get some good entries. I mean, maybe I'll only get like 1 entry and 1 person will win by default. I hope we get some really cool, unique, weird stuff. I hope. Not because I need content. I've got lots of ideas for episodes. I just thought it would be funny to give away that bizarre comic book that's also a roll of toilet paper. And if I was going to give it away, I just wanted to have a fun idea for why. Am I centered? Oh! Need to move this over here. Excuse me. Was not centered. Unforgivable. I have somewhere a good ruler, but I've misplaced it, so I'm just using, oh, never mind, here it is. That changes a lot. Let me get rid of that. I needed a straight edge. This has a raised cork back, so there's no chance of the line getting muddy or anything like when you use a piece of paper. That's nice. That's what I was hoping for. So yeah. All right, other questions. What happened when you ate all those hamburgers in the Archie episode? You know what? Not much, actually. I kind of lucked out in that one. I thought I might get sick later, but I didn't. I mean, I just felt really, really full. But it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad. Yeah, I lucked out. The only thing tricky about drawing on the live stream is sometimes I will get even closer to the artwork. You know, I'll really hunch it over and get my head closer to make sure lines are exactly what I want. And if I do that here, you know, it will like not only slow things down, but like I'll block the camera and stuff. So I'm trying to just sort of not do that. all have you been working on artistically? It doesn't have to be a drawing, doesn't have to be a painting. Like, have you worked on growing flowers or cooking an amazing meal? Like, what have you done artistically lately? I love hearing about what other people are doing artistically. Put on some music. If I put on music, Mauricio, YouTube automatically flags it, and A, I can't make any money revenue, and B, it might get the channel in trouble. So, unfortunately, I can't play music when I do this. Yeah, but what good royalty-free music is there? Be like, oh. What about the free YouTube library? I guess I've never really listened to much of it. Maybe there's something good in there. Nathaniel Rhodes says, I started Inktober, but I've been designing some original characters. Good. Do I read a lot of Punisher comics? Not anymore. When I was young, I did. Damocles says, artistically, he or she, not sure, is playing bass. That sounds cool. I like that. Trying to remake my house. I'm studying architecture. That's Mauricio. That sounds very cool. Wow. Remaking a house. That is cool. It's unique. I feel like you don't get as many stories about stuff like that. What are you drawing?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Trying to do Inktober. Trying harder than I tried yesterday, so.
You're going to do something for Inktober?
Yeah.
All right.
Tranquil.
Yeah, I don't know how tranquil this is. I'm sort of playing fast and loose with my definition of tranquil.
I was thinking about your Inktober, and I was thinking for today you should draw Peter Quill because Quill is in the word tranquil.
I don't know if you guys heard that. Chrissy suggested that I should have drawn Peter Quill, Star-Lord, because today's prompt was tranquil, and that would have been a good idea.
You think so?
I wish this would focus a little better. I feel like it's not very focused.
I think when I set the if you haven't messed with the settings, I had it up like on top of your Bristol pad, so it was like that high up.
Let me see if that makes a difference by just raising it a little bit. By day 30, we'll have, that does look a little better, just by being a little closer.
Can you work that way?
Retconned says that he or she draws almost entirely digital. I love it. That's exciting. I do a lot of digital stuff, but I also love to just sort of get back to the fundamentals every once in a while, just to stay in practice, more or less. Yeah. Looks good. Nope. Go nuts. Hi, cat. Feeling good? Got some of that food in you? What was everybody's first comic that they definitely remember reading? It doesn't have to necessarily be your first, but the first you remember. What stands out as going like, oh yeah, I like comics. For me, there were a couple comics that stood out a little as interesting to me, but it wasn't quite enough to get me to go out and buy comics, but like on trips or something, I was given once a Flash comic, the superhero Flash, and another time I was given one